video to see if we actually need to activate the starter and the sourdough. It normally takes, you have to activate the starter. You take your starter, you add some more flour and some water to it, and it takes about 12 hours for it to kind of get going properly. And I understand why we do it. It's to kind of speed up the kind of process. But I was kind of thinking, do we actually need to do it? Can we just take some starter and add it to flour and water, and slowly, it will take longer to start fermenting and proving, but will it work? I mean, we are you're kind of faffing with a sourdough for 2 days anyway, so, and some of that time I keep it in mind prove it in the fridge. So do we actually need to activate the starter beforehand? Can we just, it'll take a little bit longer possibly, but what will it taste like, and will maybe a little bit extra time fermenting, will it kind of improve the flavour? So that's my thoughts, and I just kind of thought, I've got too much starter in my culture, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity. Instead of throwing it away, we'll use a little bit more starter than we normally use, in the culture starter than we normally use. Maybe use, well, I'll weigh it, but we'll kind of see, and then we'll kind of see if this works. Just an experiment, more for myself more than anything. But there again, most of my things that I do are out of my own interest. Anyway, so we have got 500 grams. We've got a kilo of flour, and it's the I bought some. I bought some cheap flour that's near its sell-by date from the local independent supermarket. It's a cracking little supermarket, and they get all these things in that are just about to go out of date. So that 4 kilo of flour was 50p. So we're going to use that flour because I want to go through it a little bit quicker, because it's kind of gone past its best by date now. So I don't think that's will be a contributing factor, but that's the flour we're going to use. And I'll kind of talk my way through how I'm going to work things out. So it's my bread recipe is normally 600 grams of active starter, a kilo of flour, and 500 grams of water, depending on the flour that I'm using. So we'll mix together the salt, the flour, and the water, and then we'll faff around with the starter. So this is 500 grams of water, that's a kilo of flour, and there's a good pinch of salt in there. So that's the basic bread recipe, and then we kind of need to compensate for the fact that we're not going to be using 600 grams of active starter, but we still need to make sure that we add that amount of water and flour to the flour mix, so it's the proper starter recipe. So I'm going to throw this starter out anyway, so it doesn't matter if I use too much of it. So let's use 200 grams. So that's 200 grams of my starter that's just come straight out of the fridge, and then we need to get that up to 600 grams. So there's 200 grams there already, so we need 200 grams of flour, and we need 200 grams of water. So to make it up to the 600 grams of active starter that I would kind of add, because that is the recipe. I just need a little more flour. And the next big bag of flour that I opened. I'm not normally bothered about what temperature the water is. It's slightly warm is the water that I'm using today, just to kind of get things activated a little bit quicker. So that's that. Putting flour in my coffee, and then we want 200 grams. In fact, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll tip that out into the mixing bowl, and then we'll use the water to swish. We'll put 200 grams of water in here, and then we'll use that water to swish out the starter. Just tear that off. I don't know why when you reset the counter on a scale, it's called tearing off. I don't know. Might have to Google that later. So that's 200 grams of water, and we'll just use that to swish out the bowl. So for all intents and purposes now, what's in this mixing bowl is the bread recipe. I hope that made sense what I was doing. It made sense to me. But then again, lots of things that I do make sense to me and don't make sense to other people. I don't think anyway. And no doubt that's exactly the same for other people. So my starter can go back into the fridge. And then we'll mix this all together. Leave it for an hour. And then knead it, and then we'll see how long it takes to double in size. I'm curious. I don't think me thinking about it off the top of my head now, maybe hopefully the flour won't dry out this starter enough that it kills the yeast. Hopefully it won't do that. Hopefully there'll be enough moisture in there that it won't kill it. Maybe that's why you do it. Maybe that's why you activate the starter. I think it, I think my general, the questions I've got to, that I want answering, and people, yeah, so the questions that I kind of want the answers to, generally people don't kind of ask them. I always want to know why we do something, why we have to do it in a certain order. You know, who decided? Do we actually know why we're doing it? Is it essential? Do we have to do it? You know, and it's the same with everything. You know, so when someone says, "Oh, you have to knead bread for 10 minutes," I'm like, "Well, do you actually? Let's not knead it for 10 minutes. Let's have a go and see what happens." Running out of space on my phone, as always. I'll just have to delete a few things. So I always, maybe, I don't know. I just don't kind of think that lots of people just do things because that's the way they've been told to do something, rather than actually understanding why they're actually doing something. And I suppose that's the difference between someone who just a baker and a master baker. A master baker would be able to tell you exactly why you do things and why and what happens if you don't. But I think some people just do it and it works, so therefore that's the way they do it. Whereas I like to question things. Probably doesn't make me the best student, or maybe an irritating student for most teachers, but maybe they should just be better teachers. So, we mixed all that together, we'll leave it for an hour, and what that does is that allows all the flour to completely absorb all the water. That means that we can actually get away with adding more water to a sourdough, and it's slightly something to do with the resting process as well. So when you make pastry and you add water to it and then you allow it to rest, it's called a relaxation, so you can easily work with the dough. It's not as tight, and when you're making pastry, I'm talking about pastry, we're actually making bread, but it's also when you're making pastry, it allows the time for the flour to completely soak up any liquid that you've put into the flour, and that helps roll it out as well. It's not particularly that you've made the flour particularly stretchy through making the pastry, and it needs time to relax. It's more, in my understanding of things and the way I think about things, it's actually just allowing the time for the flour to completely soak up the water, thus making it much more easier to work with, if that makes sense. So we'll leave this for an hour and then we'll give it a knead. I'm just going to put a shower cap over the top of it so we don't lose kind of the moisture, and then we'll see how we go. Just a bit of a fun experiment. I need some bread anyway, and if it works, I've got the bread, and if it doesn't, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. It's only 15p, well, maybe 20p's worth of flour that we've wasted, which worth it to me if we get a good answer. And as we can see, it's doubled in size. So plus that's 20 hours later. It's doubled in size, which I suppose is about the same amount of time that it would have taken to rise if I would have added an active starter to the dough. So maybe it's just the time of year. We're in the back end of summer now, so it's a little bit warmer in the house than it would be in winter. So, but there we go. We'll see. I'll chill the dough down just to kind of slow down the proving process. I'll put it in the fridge for a few hours, just to knock it back, knock the air out of it, and then put it in the fridge just to kind of slow the proving process down. If I was to put it in proving baskets now, it would want to explode into life and overprove in the proving baskets. So we'll just chill it down for a bit, and then we'll form it in the proving baskets, and then we'll bake it probably later on tonight, and then we'll kind of see what it's like. Or maybe, no, actually it won't be tonight, it will be tomorrow when I bake it, because if it's 8 o'clock in the morning now, then it's going to be 12 o'clock tonight by the time it's ready to bake. It's about 12 hours in the fridge, proving in the proving baskets, something like that. So it will be tomorrow, so it'll be longer, so it's going to be like 24 hours before we break the bread, but there we go. Smells nice and yeasty as well, but there we go. Looks like we don't have to activate the starter before we bake the bread. And there we have it. 2 fully acceptable loaves of sourdough bread that we didn't activate the starter at all. We just added a little bit more starter than I normally would do to my usual bread recipe and bulked up with a little bit more flour and a little bit more water, kind of compensate for the amount of dirt on to compensate for there not being as much starter in with the mix. And there you go, nice split on them. Maybe just a little bit tight down there, but let's have a look inside. Nice split, nicer split than usual. But anyway, let's have a slice into one of them, and I thoroughly predict these will be decent loaves of bread. There you go. Oh, it's got a hole, but that's all down to the shaping the dough. Is that? But there you go. You don't need to activate your starter if you're making sourdough bread, if you don't want to. There you go. They are fully acceptable and delicious, because I made 3 and I've already had a bit. It wasn't to test, as in like, well, I'll just test this off camera just so I don't make a fool of myself. I make a fool of myself all the time. I would I'd cut into it anyway. So there we go. You don't need to activate your starter. If you're faffing around with sourdough and you kind of make sourdough similar to the way I do. But there we go. Easy peasy, eh?